But I love the name because it sounds very deadly and awful.
Hi, I'm George the Antique Nomad. Come with me as I wander the country in search of valuable vintage, amazing antiques, and cool collectibles. We'll buy, sell, and trade at antique malls, shops, and shows, estate sales, flea markets, thrift stores, anywhere people go to find really interesting things that just aren't made anymore. So come on, let's go!
Hello viewers, it's George the Antique Nomad, and it is great to see you again. Happy Boxing Day, or in my case, Happy Unboxing Day. I don't know how many of you who aren't in England or Canada are really aware of what Boxing Day is, but traditionally the day after Christmas, December 26th, was the day that you boxed up all of your leftovers and all of the things that you had replaced with new gifts, and you took those things and you gave them to needy families and the poor. And so things went from a place that they weren't needed anymore to a place where they were needed. Well, I had a sort of Boxing Day experience like that myself. It was right before Christmas, actually, that I got a call last minute from someone who asked me if I wanted to come and tour a house with the possibility of doing an estate sale. But he warned me about a few funny things first. One of the big antique auctions had come in and taken all of the really great furniture, and there also was a strange situation where the family who were not included in the trust kept coming around, and it was very awkward, and they had had to hire a police escort. So, I thought, not good, not good, not good, not good. But I was still in, because you never know what you're going to find in an old estate. So I said, well, you meet me there, and as long as it's safe, I'll go in with you. So we went in, and he showed me around. And the truth is what they really needed was not someone to conduct an estate sale, but for a dealer to come in and just buy whatever was decent that was left of the little stuff so that they could put the rest at auction and move on to help out the family. So I was that guy. And so I suddenly went from thinking I was having an estate sale meeting to, you have 2 hours to go through this house, find anything that you think is of value, make an offer, pack it, and get it out of here. So that's what I did. So I'm surrounded by boxes, and I think there's some cool stuff in them. I don't really completely remember because it was such a mad scramble, and I just threw it in boxes, so we're going to find out together. First of all, I want to do a little bit of friend mail, though. I showed this to a small group of people, but I haven't shown to everyone. This is from my friends, the Minners. They are viewers, and they sell at Mount Dora, and I met them there, and they gave me this. I thought it was really, really cool. It has to be from the late 70s. It says on the back it came from Phoenix, and basically it was some outfit that did this very, very wise message, which is beware of bargains in parachutes, in life preservers, in fire extinguishers, and in your vision care. So this must have been made originally for some sort of an optical place in the late 70s. I just thought it was really cool and very good advice. So I kept that, and the other thing they gave me, which was very kind of them, is this little guy. He's a newspaper boy, but he's Lipper and Mann, which was an importer out of New York. He's done in bisque. You can tell on the bottom there, if you can see the little mark, that this is going to be a 1970s piece. There was a lot of nostalgia for Norman Rockwell-looking figures in the 70s, and this little bisque guy is definitely from that time. So that was a really nice thing that they did for me, and I just wanted to thank them and show everybody. But now let's get into all these boxes, because I've got a lot of stuff to unpack. I'm just going to randomly start and show you things, and we'll see what comes out. So I had to grab this box. It's got a number on the front, but I love the name because it sounds very deadly and awful. It's an explosimeter. I have never seen an explosimeter. I wish I'd seen one in this box. But I did fill it with other little things I found around the house, so let's take a look. One of the first things, of course, I love the wall fish, and since this was a Florida house that was originally from the 50s, they had these in the bathroom. Now, most of the house was not terribly Floridian. Don't you just love the lips on her? A fish with lipstick. I guess that is a fish called Wanda. In any event, the Floridian stuff was not really heavy in this house because the gal was originally from New England, and she liked a lot of traditional, a lot of dark wood furniture and blue and white porcelain and things like that. But they had raised a family there, and so there were some little oddball fun things that I want to show. I always like these guys. You see them usually without anything other than the little keychain, but this is an owl, and it actually is called a night owl. It's got the original keychain. This one's got its original package. I've never seen one in the package before. This is from the late 60s, and the reason it's called a night owl is that the part in the middle that's sort of a custard color actually glows in the dark. That way you don't lose your keys. And I've always thought those were fun, and people are owl crazy now, so I figure that's probably worth $5. Now, I paid everything you're going to see. I paid a total of $500 for all of it. I did my best. I know I got great deals on some things. I probably paid too much for some things. We'll just find out as we go. Had to have this. I like old brewery stuff. This was made for the brewery in New York and Orange, New Jersey. And it's Rheingold Extra Dry Beer. And this is going to be from the late 60s or early 70s. I just love that it's a pennant and made by the same people who made these American flags and things like that. So I think that's cool. I suspect that's a $20 piece. Let's see what else is in this box. I feel something small. Oh, this is cool. Now this is Wade, but this is one that Wade made for Disney. And hopefully you'll be able to see him. There you go. Yes, this is from Lady and the Tramp. You'll recognize this guy. And I just thought that was so sweet. Well, this gal, I should say. And it's got the original Wade sticker on it. So this is going to be from the 60s. And the Disney Wade figures are worth a little bit. I suspect he's worth probably, sorry lady, is probably worth about $15 to $18. So that'll be a good thing to take to Florida. Okay, and then the last thing in here, I don't know what this is for, but here, it's just an aluminum nameplate. I suspect it might have been from something that was a hearing device, but I just like any old signs, and I thought here was a very happy and perky sounding thing, so why not? And what that leaves us with then is an empty box, but still a very cool empty box, and I think someone's going to like that too. So that was some nice little odds and ends kind of things. Now, a lot of the other stuff that I found in this place is definitely more of a theme. I'm going to point behind me here. You'll see a whole bunch of Copperware here. Some of this is made in England. A lot of it dates back to about 1900. A little of it is made in the US, and a little of it is made in the Middle East. And I have sort of the gamut here, but these are mostly older pieces, and some of them have some pretty good marks. This has the ebony handles, and the side stick handle like this was very popular about 1910, so you poured from the side instead of the other way around. And this one even has a lovely little heart there where the brass comes in. And this one also has a maker name, and it says trademark SS and Company. And I believe that's an English trademark that you see there. A lot of these pieces, because there's some interesting styles, I like this one on the stand that pours when you turn it. I think that's kind of a neat thing. Let me bring that out where you can see it a little better. These were just bouncing around in the back of the car. I mean, I literally had to throw things in the car. These didn't even get a box because there weren't any boxes there. I didn't go preparing to get any of this stuff. So it was kind of a last minute thing. But yes, this one is nice. You turn it this way. This one is French. It says Marais on the bottom. You may be able to pick that up there. So this is a nice French piece with a little burner in it. This would have been to boil water or make tea or coffee drinks, that sort of thing. This is going to be probably 1930s, I imagine, from the design. And some of these go back even further. This one here appears to be right from about 1900. It has a place where you can put a little bit of some sort of a heating rod or coals to heat the stuff. This one does not have a mark, but it's got a great shaped handle, and I would say this dates to right about 1900. Because she was a New England gal and liked this sort of decoration, she just had a ton of this up in the kitchen, up above everything else. And I think honestly the reason I got it is because I know the auctioneer that they had come in before me, and he's kind of short. I don't think he wanted to get up there and get those down, so I'm happy to be tall. It's you know, when you're tall, you end up with some back problems sometimes, but it makes up for it when you get up into high places. So, and then there's buckets, and this is a nice piece here. This one has the really great adjustable neck, and this one is a nice older piece. These have some real heft to them. I got them because I knew copper has value. That's also a nice decorative look. I have to be truthful. I just picked out a number on these. I didn't have time to research. I think honestly I got a very good deal on these because I only paid about $8 to $10 a piece, if I understand my notes correctly. I'll have to figure that out when I go through this a little more. And some of these pieces are worth as much as 50 to 100, as it turns out. So let's put this back. I try to always be fair about what I'm offering, especially when I go in a place blindly and they're just trusting me, but sometimes when you're caught off guard like I was, you just have to do the best you can. There was no good cell phone reception. It was funny in that neighborhood. I couldn't look everything up. I did what I could. So, you know, some things I bet I paid a little too much, and a bunch of stuff I think I got a really good deal. Now, let's see what else we have here. Oh, let's go to this box, because this has some fun stuff on the top, and we'll just go from there. This obviously was not Mom's. I assume this was maybe the son's. This is a Playboy hanging air freshener, and anything old Playboy bunny logo. This is probably from the 80s. Classic fragrance. I'm not sure what that means. That's a little suspicious, but classic Playboy fragrance it is. And then, speaking of Playboys, well, you got these guys. I like these old book games. These were always popular to collect. They've become more so this year with people staying in more and doing this kind of thing more. And this one was by, back when NBC was actually not doing very well as a network, they started to diversify. And one of the things they did was they got involved with Hasbro and put together NBC at-home entertainment, and you could get these book games. And what they consist of is, if you can pull it out, that might be a problem. I may have to work with this one. One thing about Florida is that paper stuff can age badly. It can swell, it can get stuck, and this one I'm going to have to look into. So we won't get to see what Mob Strategy looks like, but we know it's there, and I bet it's a cool game. They also had the game of railroading, and this is going to be appealing to a railroad collector because it shows the Baltimore and Ohio and the Chesapeake and Ohio rail lines. And this was way back in 1969 because they talk about getting more passengers and freight than your opponent. Well, by 1971, none of these carriers were carrying passengers anymore. They all bailed on the passenger service and turned it over to the government, and that's how we ended up with Amtrak. And then there's another one here. There were a bunch of fun little games, so I just grabbed them all because I figured games are a thing. This one is called Flounder, and this one shows you playing by a pool, so very Floridian, late 60s. And Flounder apparently is a word game where you hit a bell if you get the word the fastest. That sounds like a game that would get us into trouble around our house. We all think we're wordsmiths. This is something I don't usually pick up, but I thought this one was nice, and again, they just needed somebody to take anything they thought might have some value. And this little bronze is a reproduction from the Metropolitan, the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. Museum replicas became very popular in the 1960s, and you'll see this has a label on the back from about that time. So this is some famous bronze sculpture, probably from the Roman age, that's been turned into a little plaque for our enjoyment now. Most museum replicas don't have high value, but some of them were not cheap when they were sold in the museums, so they do have some residual value, and it is a thing that I look for because a lot of times the images are just neat, and if it's something in a museum, well, you're not going to run into a lot of competition because who else besides the museum has it? it's not like people are going to expect they can find an original. This little piece was done in Massachusetts, and it is the Lord's Prayer and a sampler on a little tile. And this was something that was done, again, as a novelty in the 1950s or 60s. Didn't cost much, just thought it was cute. This seems to be an older piece that's mounted, and this appears to be Achilles, getting ready to fly to the sun, if I'm seeing that correctly. I thought that was fun. Again, this gal, she definitely was well-read, and she had an interest in the classics, so we saw some things that were more classic-looking. However, she also lived at one time near the Canadian border before she moved to Florida. So I have this old enameled tray. And what I like about this is it shows the various provinces of Canada at the time the tray was made, their different shields and crests. And you have a total on here, if you count, of 8. And that means this is before 1949, because Newfoundland was its own separate country and a different part of the Commonwealth until 1949. So this is an older piece. It does have a little bit of damage at the edges, though. So I don't expect it to be too valuable, but I do think it's cool. And the great thing is that I've got shows coming in Florida, but this is all going to be merchandise for sale. And if you see anything you like, well, you're welcome to shoot me an email at theantiquenomad@gmail.com, and I'll see if I can set you up. This is a little stone book. Again, she was a librarian, and so this would have been a paperweight made out of some sort of a hard stone, a granitic stone, probably Italian. Nicely done, I suspect 1950s or so. And then we have a nice little lacquer box with a dragon on it. This is going to be Japanese, and it should date to, I suspect, right after, shortly, well, actually, no, I'm looking inside at the purple silk. I think it might be before the Second World War, but it was some sort of a presentation box of some sort, and whatever it had in it originally is gone, but I think someone will really like it just for what it is. Okay, we've got a couple of just fun little silly games. The one on this side is French, and I am not going to massacre the French by trying to tell you what it is, but it does seem to be where you try to flip the chips into this cup, so kind of like tiddlywinks. And then this other one here, this is a novelty. This is by Adams, and they did all sorts of novelty and fun stuff and magic tricks. This is where you've got the balls that pass through the cup, and if you were able to do this with enough sleight of hand, you could fool people into thinking that they actually went through a solid cup. It's really kind of a shell game, as you can see there. I just thought the graphics were fun. These little novelty games, they've always sold for me for $8 or $10 each. They're fun for stocking stuffers and that sort of thing. And hey, there's only 364 shopping days until Christmas. I always looked at typewriter ribbons anyway. That's just a push pin rattling in there. Good to know. This is a fairly modernist typewriter tin. You can see by the harvest gold and the style, this is going to be from about 1970s, and this is in the royal port color, so some sort of a deep royal blue, I imagine. I know we've got some typewriter tin folks out there, so I just always like to show those when I see them. Let's see, this one, another museum edition. This is Metropolitan Museum of Art, and this is based on, I believe, a famous English unicorn design. But it's by an outfit in England called Halcyon Days Enamels. And Halcyon Days enamels can be valuable. These little boxes are starting to go up in value. They were not that inexpensive when they were made about 30 years ago, a lot of them. And now time has elapsed and people are paying premium prices for them. So I'll be curious to see what this goes for. I really don't think I paid more than a few dollars because, again, I was in a big scrambling hurry. I didn't look at the bottom when I picked it up to realize that it was theirs. I just thought, well, this is cute and I'll throw it in the box. Another cute that I just threw in the box is this little guy. He is metal and he must be, I imagine he's cast iron. He's just so cute, little red fox. And judging by the weight, I'd say he probably dates to when this gal was a child back in the 1930s. So I thought he was neat. Okay, we have a box in here we can get into, I think. I'm having fun looking at all this stuff again. I hope you guys are. Let's see here. We'll open this up and, oh, this is nice. These are Bakelite dominoes. I always think of Laura Bemos. I got to play with the domino set that she made for me. It was very kind of her. And I'll flip some of these over so you can see the faces. But this is Butterscotch Bakelite. Now the Butterscotch Bakelite is not as valuable as red and some of those colors. But these little domino sets made of Bakelite typically sell for about $40 to $45. And this one even has a little cribbage board that comes with it. So you can play a bunch of games. It's in a nice walnut travel case. This is going to date to about 1950. And the last one of these I sold, I believe I got $40 or $45 for it. So I was very happy to see these. And what's in this bag? Let's see. Oh, little boxes of, what do we have here? Oh, thimbles. Okay. And who are on these thimbles? I'll bet these are, yes, okay. These are Beatrix Potter characters on thimbles. Here's one of the cat figures. I would have to take it out to really see. These are by a company called Reuter Porcelain in Germany. When Beatrix Potter has always been very popular with kids, it's been popular for several generations, and in the late 80s particularly, really starting in the 60s, but really accelerating in the late 80s, there were a lot of Beatrix Potter collectibles made. And these porcelain thimbles happen to be one of them. Here's one with Peter Rabbit. Peter Rabbit, of course, is the most famous of the Beatrix Potter characters, but she did an entire menagerie of characters in that book. And it looks like I've got about 5 of those little thimbles, so we'll have to see which characters they are when there's a little more time. But the reason that I picked those up is because she also had the things that I really look for, which are the Beswick and Company Beatrix Potter figures. And these are some of the, I think some of these may be the more elaborate ones. This one says it's Peter with a watering can, so let's see what he looks like. I did not open any of this stuff, I just threw it in the box. Looks like he's in good shape. He's got the Beswick mark from when they were part of Royal Dalton, which is a little later, and the really last ones just say Royal Dalton. But there is Peter Rabbit in one of those things behind us, except not a copper one. The Beswick mark, it wasn't until the late 80s that Royal Dalton acquired Beswick and merged it in, and so I honestly, my favorite are the era before it says Royal Dalton on it, but they did really, like I say, it was an era where a lot of, this is 1987, and this is when the interest in Peter Rabbit really grows and the collectibles start to really come out. So there are several of those. They even have some larger ones. I think this is a tableau. Let's see if it is, or if it's just one character. A tableau is basically a porcelain figurine or a figurine with multiple characters on one little platform, or tableau. Okay, this one is just a single. This is Hunka Munka, one of the more famous characters from the book. And there she is. It's a wonderful world in Peter Rabbit where mice and cats get along perfectly well together, and nobody eats anybody. So that's very nice. Although Peter Rabbit does get into a certain amount of trouble. I think the whole point of Peter Rabbit was to tell young children, stay with your mom and quit running off and doing things on your own or you'll get busted. And it probably worked. I seem to remember thinking, I actually remember as a kid being not entirely excited about Peter Rabbit because Peter Rabbit went off on his own, which I thought sounded like a great idea. And then it didn't turn out too well and he had to go home and got in a lot of trouble. And that did not sound so great. So it's funny how kids perceive things. Let's get that back in there. Okay. What other Beswick do we have? I won't necessarily open all of them, but I'll just show you. We have Farmer Potatoes in this box. I do not know what Farmer Potatoes looks like. I've got to look at Farmer Potatoes. This one is Peter Rabbit Digging, because that was one of the naughty things he did. These two are a little smaller. This one is Tom Kitten in the Rockery, and it looks a little crunched. I better make sure he survived. This one, they started to do the World of Beatrix Potter boxes, so they get a little fancier looking. You have the Fox and the Goose here, for example. And this one is the Head Gardener. But let's take a look at Tom Kitten in the Rockery and just make sure he's okay. And here we go. There is Tom Kitten, and he looks perfectly fine. So, I've got a nice little grouping of Beatrix Potter, and I'm excited about that. I've got one collector in Florida who specifically likes Beatrix Potter, and I've certainly gotten good response on the YouTube shows that I've done when I've shown Beatrix Potter, so I know some of you folks out there like it too. And one last one, I wanted to see who Farmer Potatoes was. Oh, he's not anthropomorphic at all. He is actually a farmer named Farmer Potatoes. So there you go. Oh, and by the way, if you are a subscriber, I thank you very much. It really does help us with YouTube if you are able to subscribe. And if you would like to support us with a membership, that's a great thing too. We have a couple of different membership tiers. One is basically a thank you and acknowledgement level, and one you actually get extra videos first shot at. So you can check that out. I've got a video in my playlist about it. And also, let's see, hit like to like us, hit join to join as a member, hit subscribe to subscribe as a subscriber, and I think if you click the bell, you get notified about future videos. So I think I got it all. Now these are cute. These are little teeny tiny trains, penny toys. They'd be fun to set up because they're mainly red and green around a Christmas tree in a display. But they're just a bunch of little penny toys in one little box. And I'm sure I'll sell those as a set. But there are collectors of those. And we've got one more box. I don't know if this is a Halcyon Days. No, this is a company called Avondale Bone China. And this one's just a simple blue willow pattern. Not going to be as valuable as the Halcyon Days name for sure. It's in good shape, the hinge is good. And there's collectors of blue willow who will definitely like that. And then this last thing says unscrew here, and I don't know what you keep in it. So I'll have to get a screwdriver and see. I don't feel or hear anything in it, but it's shaped like a little lantern that could hang. And I suspect it was a place just to put little keepsakes. I don't really know anything more about it, but it's cute. And sometimes I have to say, after all these years and all these things, and oh yes, we like this because it's this, and we like this because it's that, honestly, so much of it is about, it appeals to me, I think it's neat, I like it, it's got energy that makes me think someone else will like it, and that's reason enough to get it. Okay, so we got through that box. Let's see. Speaking of boxes, we have boxes within boxes. This is one of the typical Lane Cedar chests. And this one advertises a St. Petersburg, Florida place, so I'll no doubt end up taking this to Florida for shows and such. These were given out all over the place by different furniture companies, and Lane, of course, is known for the cedar chests, and they'd give you a little one as a dresser box so that you would remember the furniture store when it came time to buy your actual one for your Haute chest. One thing that was in this house that I do understand enough and was able to make a reasonable offer on was coins. And while I don't think there was anything amazing, I'm going to look really quickly at these and show you just a few of the things that we found, just because we often do find money in houses. This house actually had quite a lot, and I looked at the coins with the fellow and told him which ones he should just take to Coinstar, because there were thousands of pennies, for example, and which ones actually had some collector value potentially. And then I bought the ones with the collector value. These are not anything particularly rare, but There were a bunch of silver half dollars. These are the John F. Kennedy from 1964. This was the first year that the JFK half dollar came out. And this one is pretty much uncirculated, it looks like. A lot of them are, because in 65 they switched over to clad, where it was mostly copper, and the government took a lot of the silver ones back out of circulation so that people couldn't get hold of them. But anyway, there's a little group there. I think there's probably $30 or $40 worth, which is nice. And, oh, let's see, some Canadian change, couple of pennies. No really great shakes, but I will show you one other thing real quickly. These nickels look sort of different, if you notice. They're tarnished a little different from regular nickels. Well, that's because these were largely made of silver during the Second World War, and to designate that, they put the mint mark in large letters over the dome of Monticello. So if you ever see a nickel that looks a little funny and it has a big letter above the dome, then you know that it has silver in it. Now, they're only worth about 50 cents a piece for the most part in worn condition, because they made a lot of them. But it's still, they come into circulation. You'll get them in your change sometimes, and they are silver, and they're worth more than a nickel. So do look for that sort of thing. If you see something in the change that doesn't look right, take a moment and take it out, because people have found pennies and quarters and dimes and nickels worth hundreds of dollars or more sometimes. Especially right now with the upheaval that people have been going through. Some people are just raiding the old family coin collection, and they don't know what they're putting out. They're just spending it. So you do have a chance to find those things. Speaking of silver, this is a neat thing. This was on a broken bottle, but it is sterling silver marked, and this is for port. They would put these sterling silver tags on liquor bottles. It was especially popular in the 50s, 60s, 70s. It was seen as being kind of classy. I think it heralds from a much earlier time, and it was just so that you knew what you put in each bottle. They're not a ton of sterling, so they're not worth a fortune, but they usually sell for about $15 or $20. And they also made them not in sterling, so if you find one, it pays to look and see if you've got a silver one or not. This is just some sort of a little sewing implement with the thimble on the end that screws out of this 50s era red plastic. Just thought it was cute. It's just a little trifle, few dollar item. And I picked this up because it's an eye bath. And I like eye baths because I have, strangely enough in this business, been in enough weird places like attics or crawling around in a shed where something got in my eye, and it turns out an eye bath is a very handy thing. This one has some age. You can't see it from your perspective, and I can't really show you, but if you could see from my perspective with the sunlight coming in, you'd see it has an opal fire to it. And milk glass made before 1960 has an opal fire to it, and after that it has sort of a dull gray cast because they changed the formulation. So this one's earlier, and they sell for about $5. Really more as a practical thing, but they are vintage. And, oh, one more thimble. I don't even remember picking this up. This one is Wedgwood. And it's got a nice Jasperware bust on it, and it says Wedgwood, England on the back. And I don't even remember putting that in the box. So we'll see what other goodies I find that I don't remember getting. And let's move on to another box and see what they've got. Okay, this one. Well, actually, let's look behind me first, because I've got stuff all over the place. So we looked at the copper. If you look on this side, you'll notice a whole bunch of this stuff. I got a whole bunch of HO train cars. Now, these were found in a shed behind the house. Sheds in Florida are not kind to things. It can be 100+ degrees all summer long. Stuff gets in there. It wants to live in there. There's lots of dirt. But this has never been out of its original box, so I will clean it, and I'll be able to sell it as new in box. And that's a great thing to have. In fact, almost none of these have ever been out of their box. Now, this one looks like it's been through a horror movie. You're going to see some pretty disgusting stuff. Just so you don't think the life of an antiquer is all glamour, you can tell this one had some little brown insect visitors that wanted to live in it. So this is going to be a little bit of a gross job where I get to change into my real grubbies. I'm in my semi-grubbies for unpacking, and do some cleaning. But these pieces, again, have never been out of their original box. Now, this company, Model Power, was kind of a lower end maker. The ones you really want are some of the better companies. Walthers is a better company that you see sometimes. This one is Bachmann, but this was Bachmann's Spectrum line. This was their high-end railroad line, and this one feels like an engine because it feels heavy. And there it is, an Amtrak engine. Again, the box is not in great shape, but this piece has never been out of it, and so it should have some value. I've got, gosh, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, and then there's an entire box over here of them as well. One of them's going to fall if I'm not careful. Let me move this. I probably have 25 or 30 of these train cars, and what's great about it is that the people who were having me buy to help clear the house so that they can settle the trust and move on were so happy that somebody was interested in these, because they said we really worked hard to save them and we were afraid no one would want them. And I got a wonderful deal on them. I think I only paid a few dollars a piece. I made an offer for a bunch, and then there were a bunch more at the end that were even dirtier, and they said, well, why don't you just have those? And I said, well, thank you, and I took them. So as a result, I didn't pay much, and that's going to be exciting because I have lots of people who look for those in Washington State, in Centralia, Washington, where I met Stephanie from Thrifting Adventures, and we went shopping. Both of my stores there get so many people who come down on the train. They're rail fans. They ride the train down for the day, go through the antique stores, get back on the train, and go back to Seattle or Portland. And so train stuff sells all day long. So that's going to be nice to have. Also in that box, I just noticed, I crammed in, I didn't take a whole lot of her blue and white porcelain because the auction service had come and gotten a lot of the better pieces already, but I did rescue the ones that I thought had some value. This one is Spode. I believe this is the Italian pattern. Yes, that's right. This originally came out in the 1800s and was so popular with collectors that they reissued it in about 30 years ago. And this little piece is probably a $15 to $20 piece, but it's got a nice mark on the bottom. And there are people who still collect these, and look, a penny fell out of it. There's just stuff coming at me from everywhere. So it's got a nice mark. And Spode, of course, does just such nice work. Even the detail up the handle is good. So that one is the Spode. I believe that these also maybe, this one is the little one, and of course you can tell the original from the newer because the newer says microwave safe. On the other hand, people nowadays want things to be functional, so they like microwave safe. And then this one is also the Italian, so you've got the creamer, the open sugar, and then I've got a nice little milk pitcher there. So a couple of nice pieces. And I think there's a little more blue and white actually in here. I know I saw one other thing in this box. I thought, let's take it out. Oh yes, that's right. One more very dirty thing. Unfortunately, because of the problems with family in this house, the house has sat vacant for quite a while. And so some things are very dirty. This is a good example. They're really filthy, but they were worth getting because they're Delft blue. And they did not cost a lot, because when you're buying stuff that's presented with actual crud on it like this, well, you can't expect that it's going to go for a fortune. But it should clean up. You always have to take into account when you're buying for resale that maybe something doesn't clean up or there's something more wrong to it, so you don't want to pay too much. You've got to be careful about that. But these, the corks are in good shape, and that makes a difference. So this is a nice set. And again, I don't have a lot into any of this, which is great. So it's nice to buy things at a dollar amount where you can price them cheaply, and maybe other resellers buy them, and maybe a collector gets a good deal. It keeps people coming back, that's for sure. Let's see what we have behind us here. A little bit more in Beatrix Potter. I hadn't mentioned, I also got 2 of the music boxes. And again, these have the original tags on them. I don't even think they've ever been wound before. So, if I would hold it where you could see it, you can see that he spins around while the book turns. And the book, of course, is a Beatrix Potter book. And this particular one plays my favorite things. This particular one, also as if to illustrate a point, has a little chip on his ear. So again, just because you're buying stuff in a big hurry and you say, gee, it's in a box, and it looks like it's never been touched, well, that doesn't mean that it's never been touched. You really have to check things out. So he will have to sell as is, but hopefully the other one is in better shape. And the other one is right here, and she plays, let's see, oh, this is Peter Cottontail himself, so let's see what he plays. Well, of course, it's Here Comes Peter Cottontail, hopping down the bunny trail. Hippity-hoppity, Easter's on its way. And he, of course, is also in front of a book where he is proudly eating some lettuces and some beans and then some radishes. And I think he ends up with carrots, and then he ends up getting chased by the farmer. Anyhow, these are just very sweet. These were by, again, about 30 years ago. These are by Schmid out of Germany. And they're good quality, and there is some collector market for them. So I'm glad one of them is in good shape. And let's see, one last Bestwick. I just sort of threw boxes everywhere. And this one is J. Fisher. So we'll put him in the pile. All right, let's... Oh, yes, this has a story. I definitely want to talk to you about this because this is part of the reason I got to buy out of this estate, because unfortunately, apparently, the one who the trust was formed to help is a paranoid schizophrenic and does not fully comprehend what's being done for his benefit. And it's unfortunate because he got himself into some trouble. He broke into the house when he wasn't supposed to. A neighbor called the police. The police came and he immediately picked up this sword and brandished it at them. The reason that they're handling things differently now. And it was a little silly too, because this is a ceremonial sword. This is not a sword that could have really done any damage. He's lucky that the police were very patient and knew the situation, because this is not a good sword to brandish at someone. Partly because it's threatening looking, and partly because it's never had an edge. This would not hurt anybody. You could hit him over the head with it, I suppose. But this is from Scotland, and this is done by a company in Inverness called Chisholm. You'll notice the thistle motif on the blade. It's been in and out of this a lot, but this would have been ceremonial. This would have been for parade. It was not intended to be used as a weapon. Even though it has wear from being drawn quite a lot, it would have been drawn perhaps as a prop in theater, or as some sort of a show in a guard or in the tattoo, but this was not meant to ever be used as a weapon. So it's cool looking, and for someone of Scottish heritage, I think it'll be a neat find. It will likely sell under $100 because, as interesting as it is, it's a very specific thing and it really is just for show. Even though it's got some age, I'd say that the age on that, probably going back looking at the castings to the early to mid 20th century. These are very pretty and good quality. This is Darby China, also known as Royal Crown Darby. And look at the detail and the use of real gold paint on these. They did a lot of figural pieces as well. They definitely have an Asian influence, but it is made in England. And they're just little pieces, but they're both very nicely done. And I thought that was something worth showing. And something worth picking up. Just open every box, open every drawer. If you're near the bottom of a pile, keep going to the bottom. That's where a lot of the best stuff ends up. And one of the things that ended up there.
Thanks for joining me again in the fun and fascinating antique community here where online meets the real world. Please click the subscribe button below, click the bell to be notified when new videos upload, leave a comment below, and hit thumbs up to like this video. Links to our online social media daily posts and our items for sale are in the description. This is George at the Antique Nomad. Bye for now.